Hi everyone, thanks for joining us again at In the Know. We're catching up with some of your favorite celebs, reality TV stars, and more direct from their homes. I'm your host, Gibson Johns, and today we're joined by Andrew Fitzsimons, one of the most in-demand celebrity hairstylists in the game right now, who recently made a cameo in the season 18 premiere of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Andrew and I chatted about his rise in the world of hair, which involved him quitting school at the age of 14 before moving to Paris and New York to pursue his dreams. Since then, he's worked with the likes of Adele, Mariah Carey, and now the entire Kardashian-Jenner family. And he told us how helping out on a last-minute shoot with the young Kendall Jenner got him into their orbit. Keep listening for my full interview with Andrew. So Andrew, where are you right now? Quarantining? Who are you with? How have you been kind of spending your days?
Well, I am by myself at home in LA. I have been. It's kind of crazy because my schedule is very, very hectic. Usually, I work 7 days a week. So I'm really getting used to not leaving the house. I've never had a day where I just do nothing. So it's been really amazing. I've got to catch up on a lot of work stuff that I haven't had time because I'm running around doing hair.
Right.
But also catching up on stuff that I hadn't been doing because I was so busy, like reading, meditating. I feel like everyone is really discovering so much that they've kind of put to the side.
Definitely.
Because of life getting in the way. So I feel like I'm really catching up on a lot. And I definitely think that once this is over, there's a lot of stuff that I'll be bringing into my life to try and create more balance.
That's so nice. Do you have an example of something that you kind of have really found has been helping you?
Well, I'm a solution-oriented person, so I try not to get really worried about the in-between. And especially being any kind of freelance person will attest that you really are kind of goal-focused or future-focused, because the present sometimes can be uncomfortable or it isn't where you want to be. So I'm very used to going, okay, well, this is the way it is right now, but it's not always going to be like this. So I'm going to do what I have to do to be okay. I'm going to only see the news that I need to see that affects me directly. So I'm prepared as a person, and so I can be responsible for myself and my community. But I definitely, as we all know, there's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation from people passing on info. So I really just try to keep things basic, try to keep a positive outlook. But I'm used to kind of being in a state of unknowing, but kind of moving towards somewhere. So meditation has definitely helped, and just taking the time for myself to kind of ask myself, what do I want to achieve right now in this space? And because it really is an opportunity, you know?
Totally. And I'm curious, because you said kind of usually your daily schedule is being out and about and doing hair. And I'm curious to sort of, how have you sort of like supplemented that? Have you kind of helped people virtually, or are you kind of doing totally different work right now?
Well, I have my own line of products.
Right.
That's available in Primark internationally. Right now, obviously, everything is shut down. So I'm definitely still working on my line. I'm still trying to still be involved with my hair makeup counterparts in LA and seeing what everyone is up to and trying to organize some Instagram live, keep the content going and keep everyone kind of connected in a way, you know? So it's been in the hair side of things, I'm very limited because I think female hairstylists or hairstylists with long hair can definitely still do a lot. They can still do some tutorials and try out products and stuff, but me being bald-headed, I'm kind of relegated to talking about hair.
Totally. You can't really be doing the demos on Instagram Live.
Not right now.
No. I did see you were on the Keeping Up with Kardashians season premiere the other day. Did you watch?
I definitely, I haven't seen the first episode. I generally kind of wait a second, especially if I know I'm in an episode. I don't love seeing myself on camera, but it definitely is very beneficial for me to see what hairstyles I like, what works, what doesn't work, so I can always improve.
Right.
So I'll probably check it out. I might zoom past the parts where I'm in it. Yeah, no, I haven't seen it yet, but it's on my DVR.
Got it. Yeah, because it was interesting to me just because I've been watching the show for a long time, and the scene that we see you is I think Courtney's just sort of getting glam for the day or for shooting for the show. And I'm curious, just sort of, I mean, you've worked with them in a lot of different capacities, but what's sort of like that kind of daily, everyday glam session look like when like, because to us they're just sort of filming, but there's obviously a little bit more that goes into it.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's a reality show, so the cameras are just following them around through their daily lives. So generally, I work with a lot of the family. Yeah. So I'm generally bouncing around the houses in the morning, getting everybody ready. So that's basically what it is. I'll show up and I'll go to Chloe's house. We'll have some coffee. We'll spill the tea. It's basically just laughing for an hour and a half and like kikiing with friends. And then I'll bounce over to Courtney's, and I might go over to Kim's or Kylie's. And get them ready, and they all have kind of different things going on in different schedules. So it's very, everything just kind of usually just falls into place, and I'm bouncing around Calabasas all day, every day, getting everybody ready.
That sounds like a pretty good life right there.
I mean, it's not the worst. I come from New York, and the weather, we don't have the extreme weather to fight through. That's one thing that's just taken one big element out of like
completely.
The daily schlepping of work. Like in New York, it was getting on the subway with like a giant suitcase and 2 giant suitcases and like climbing upstairs and blah, blah, and throwing them over this turnstile. And now it's like, get in car, drive to place, and then come home in the sunshine. It's kind of like a whole different
What a concept.
So I'm definitely not complaining.
What a concept that is.
I know. But a car is definitely, I've discovered, it's like a giant handbag. I have to be very, very careful, or else it gets really, it turns into Mary Poppins's handbag, and I'm like, how did a lamp get in here? Like whatever. So
I love it.
I'm still getting used to the LA lifestyle, but it's definitely very cushy.
I do want to step back a little bit because I think it's important. I think a lot of people recognize you as a celebrity hairstylist, but I think that there's obviously a lot of people. You have a really cool story, and I would just love for you to kind of like give us a little kind of the Spark Note version of sort of how you first got involved sort of in the hair world, and sort of how you sort of progressed through it.
Yeah, well, I'm from Ireland, and in Europe, and I think most countries outside of the States, hairstyling is a trade, a lot like a carpenter or laborer or woodworker. It's basically just a skill with your hands, and so that's how it's recognized. So basically, we don't have hair schools like you do in the States. We have apprenticeships, like with a carpenter or whatever, a skilled trade, and so it's kind of a different approach. But I started when I was 13. I asked my mom to help me get a part-time job when I was 13 years old. And I don't think I'd really ever thought about hair outside of cutting very short bangs on my younger sister when she was like 3 or 4 years old. I don't think I had been allowed to be around hair since then. But I had been in school, and I was in a very tough rugby school in Ireland, and I'm not the rugby type, to be honest. So it wasn't a great environment, and it definitely didn't encourage me to be creative in any way. It was very like, this is what we're going to teach you here. It's the bare minimum, and it's about
very
rugby,
rigid.
and it's about woodworking or like man things. And I was like, well, I don't like any of that, so I'm just going to stay here until I can leave. And I got a summer job at a hair salon, and it was all women, and it was my first time being in an only female environment. I felt so safe. The women didn't need me to perform in any way. They didn't need a gender role for me. They just wanted me to be me. And for the first time, I was able to look into myself and find out who I was and what I wanted to present to the world for the very first time, other than instead of society telling me what I was supposed to be for the outside world. So the salon definitely gave me that safe space to start my journey with hair, but also with my relationship with myself and women also. And since then, my career has really always been women focused, and I really want to be as responsible as I possibly can, because all of my clients are women, and women have been my salvation, my safe space, my champion. So for me, I really have to be responsible with what I do, because I am working with women, and I'm not a woman, and I want to support women as much as I possibly can and not take away. I only want to give as much as I can. So that's always my agenda, and has been since then. But so I worked in a salon, and I decided not to go back to school. I turned 14 over the summer and decided to not go back to school. So I started my career at 13. So almost it'll be 20 years full time. Wow. And do my job next year.
And how did your parents sort of react to that? That's a big decision to make when you're 14.
Yeah, my dad didn't know for another 3 years.
Wow.
Because I lived with my mom, and we thought it best that he didn't know for a while. But by the time he found out, I was making a lot more money than him, so he didn't say anything. It was a long process with myself, my mom, guidance counselors in the school. Basically, the guidance counselor was my English teacher, and I have ADD, and I can only really give my effort and my best effort to things that I'm interested in. If I'm not interested in something, like in maths class, I might as well have been in like Russian class, because I didn't understand or want to understand anything.
Right.
My ears were just closed.
No interest.
So my English teacher was probably my English teacher, my art teacher were the only people who recognized me, probably, because that's the only one I would ever be engaged in.
Right.
And so my English teacher happened to be the guidance counselor. My mom went in and was like, what do I do? My son wants to leave. He's refusing to go to school, blah, blah, blah. And he basically said, look, education is different for everybody. Most of these kids, when they leave here at 18, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they want to do in the world. And then they go to college, and then they don't know what to do after college. He is smart. He knows what he wants to do. He's ambitious. I wish that kids were like that when they were leaving school. So basically, my mom sat me down and said, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this as a team, and you have to make some commitments to me. You have to promise that you will try and get to the highest vantage point in your career. And you will never take a sick day. She was afraid that because she knew that I was having a hard time at school.
Right.
And there was a lot of homophobia and bullying. So she knew I just didn't like school, but I don't think she really understood how passionate I was about hair and how much of a commitment I wanted to make. Mm-hmm. So she made me make sure that I stayed applied to what I was doing. And since then, I've only had one sick day in almost 20 years.
Wow. So that was an important. That was an important caveat. I got food poisoning, and it was a full Linda Blair situation. So like no one wanted me that day anyway. So, but I tried to keep that commitment to my mother, because obviously I was really, really young. And since then and that's been basically the basis of the trajectory of my career, where I made a commitment to my mother to get to the highest vantage point of my career and be goal orientated. So I stayed in Dublin. I did my apprenticeship, and then I got an agent. Then I started working in television in Dublin, and then I was like, okay, it's time for Paris. So that's where I moved to Paris when I was 16, got an agent there. I started working in Fashion Week and shoots, and really tried to educate myself in the real fashion in the fashion capital of the world, Paris. And then once I got everything that I could get from Paris, I decided at 21 to move to New York. So I've always tried to really kind of move the goalposts further and further. And that's kind of helped me keep everything really interesting. It's helped me learn the most. And there's always something else to sort of look to, and sort of you're never kind of reaching the peak. And I feel like that's so important.
Absolutely. I think a lot of creatives are just never satisfied, and I'm definitely one of those people. I always want to be growing. I always want to be learning. I think that with creativity, the best thing that you can focus on is, number one, gratitude, because that is just helpful across the board. But if you're a creative, working on your ego and being able to remain a student is the best thing that you can do for yourself. The moment you really think that you are it, and people should only ever have to learn from you, or whatever the mentality is when you really close yourself off to creativity. And creativity is an open community that really doesn't have any lines. It's not a linear thing. It's a flow. And if you're able to keep yourself humble, keep yourself a student, always want to learn, always want to grow, then that's exactly what will happen.
Totally. So you moved to New York, and what do you consider to be sort of like your big break that happened there? Was there somebody you met or started working with?
Well, in Europe, especially in Paris, I'd moved to New York from Paris, and in Paris, it's just fashion. Everyone is just there, and they're passionate about fashion, and that's what the industry is there. Whereas New York is fashion, also commerce, and also celebrity.
Right.
So coming from Paris, I obviously when I came to New York, I was just doing a lot of fashion because that's what my book was, and that's what I was known for. But then I think it was I think the first celebrity that I worked with that kind of changed things and kind of was my introduction into the kind of celebrity hair world was Adele.
Amazing.
I worked with her when she came to New York. Nobody knew who she was in the States. She came for her to promote her 21 album, and I think we're almost the same age, and I hadn't been around any people from the UK or Ireland in a really long time, so I was just really happy to have someone that got my sense of humor, and I got her sense of humor. And she loved the same references as me. We both loved the 60s, hair silhouettes from the 60s, glamour. So it was really fun coming up with looks with her. And then I was like, okay, maybe this is the best of both worlds, because what I loved about working in a salon was the personal relationships with clients. But also I loved the creativity of the fashion world and photo shoots and dress up and concepts and research and teamwork. So celebrity to me, in that moment, I realized, okay, this is something that I should really pay attention to, because it really focuses on all the things that I really love and I really want to grow. Mm-hmm. And then thereafter, I started working with Mariah Carey pretty regularly. And that's when I really realized that was the part of the business I really wanted to focus on next.
Wow.
And working with Mariah was probably the best start for me, because not only is she one of the most iconic people, and she also has an iconic look, and she knows what she likes. Yep. Yeah. But she's also one of the kindest people I've ever met or worked with, still to this day. Such a gracious, sweet, disarming person. So for it being the start of my career, I don't think there's anyone better to have kind of started me off, and she was so supportive and amazing. So I really accredited working with Adele and working with Mariah. Was definitely the moment I decided that I was going to really, really try to carve a space for myself in the celebrity fashion world.
Right, and what's amazing about that is that, I mean, you have Adele in her 21 era, which was her huge breakout moment. It was her iconic moment. You have Mariah, who, like you said, she has this iconic look, and she has iconic hair, and to be part of both of those that's pretty major.
Yeah, as a starting place, it really was, because with Adele, we really worked together to create silhouettes and looks,
right,
which was one side of the industry, which is really fun for me, because I love mood boarding and I love researching. And when I lived in Paris, I lived around the corner from this magazine archive place, which had, when I tell you, a giant store just filled with piles of way taller, 12 feet of magazines piled of every single Vogue, every Harper's Bazaar, from the 1800s. So I would just spend every day. They hated me because I bought nothing. I was there every day, just memorizing silhouettes, photographers, eras, just so I would have it in my brain. Because then there was you couldn't just Google something on your phone. Right. You had to actually know it. And to this day, it's a piece of advice I give young hairstylists and young people who want to be in the fashion or beauty industry, is having those references in your mind is invaluable, because you're able to make the mathematical equation when you're on a shoot, when you see a piece of clothing that was inspired by a certain era, and you go, okay, that reminds me of this, so maybe I can give a nod to this era by creating a tiny bit of texture on the crown, or I can give a nod to Brigitte Bardot with this way or whatever. And being able to create in your mind before you start using
so
references can help you create your own brand of creativity and have more of yourself in it. So that was definitely something that I really tried to do. And when working with Adele, we had very, very similar reference points. And then with Mariah, as you said, she has obviously, she's honed her look over the years, and she's been in the business for a really long time and is a consummate professional. So being able to like look at her style, look at her silhouettes, and then work with her on her vibe that is very, very Mariah, is the other side of what I do every day. Because usually it's either me coming up with looks or me working with a client on their existing look and trying to put my own spin on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's so important. It's sort of like, and I'm sure that's a balance that you kind of strike every day, is what does the client want? What do I want? What do I think that they can do? How do you kind of, is that sort of part of it? Sort of you kind of like have to push some of your clients?
I want the client to feel like themselves. I want them to be happy. I want them to love their hair. I also want to be proud of it for me as a hairstylist. But the thing is, I don't force my hair agenda on anybody. I really try to, I enjoy flexing my team muscles as much as I can and really try to listen to people and understand. Like my clients I'm sure, so annoyed with the amount of references I send, and the amount of talking that I want to do on each look. They're like, oh, it's just a red carpet for 2 seconds. I'm like, but this is these photos are going to live forever. This is the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. Let's
make it the moment. Let's make it the moment.
Let's live in the fantasy.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely a researcher. I'm definitely a planner when it comes to hairdos. That's one big part of my job. Definitely is trying to calculate hairstyles in my head.
Totally, and I we sort of mentioned this earlier, but I think a lot of people recognize you as sort of as somebody who has worked with Kim and Courtney and Khloe and Kylie in recent years, especially. How did you sort of get into their orbit? And then I'm also curious, just what kind of impact do you think you've had on their looks? Because I mean, talk about iconic. They are the 21st century kind of icons right now.
Well, it all started. I was on a photo shoot in New York with this photographer that I think it was like an ad campaign. And I was working with a photographer that I had wanted to work with for ages because he was shooting like Vogue covers and like really big stuff. And at the time, I was just doing everything that I could in New York and trying to make a name for myself. So when he was like, oh, there's a model coming after the shoot today and I'm just using the studio because we have all the lights set up and everything. Do you want to stick around and do the hair? I was like, yeah, sure. Anything to work with this guy. Uh-huh. So in comes at 6 p.m. Kendall Jenner. And this was her first test shoot in New York as a model.
Wow.
I can't remember what age. I'm assuming she was maybe 16 or 17.
I think that sounds about right.
Yeah, and we did a whole, I think it was like a denim shoot together. She was amazing. She was great. And then she started booking me for all of her New York. She was still living in LA at the time and coming to New York for each season. And I started working with her on all of her carpets that she would do in New York. And then the Met Gala.
Wow.
And I really think the Met Gala with Kendall, it was the year that she wore the green Calvin Klein dress.
Mm-hmm.
It really felt like where she kind of debuted as not only like a celebrity, but also like a supermodel. That was like another, I feel like I'd never had a big break, but there's like lots of little breaks.
Little
and that
peaks,
kind of transformed my career into a different, like that moment transformed my career into a different avenue. And that's where I started taking things really, really seriously when it came to like the celebrity world.
For sure.
And putting my focus into that. And then when the family came, I think it was one fashion week, I was doing Kendall, and then I got a request from Courtney. So I'm sure she asked Kendall for a recommendation because she knew she was in New York a lot or something. So I started working with Courtney, and then I was kind of to and from LA at the time, mm-hmm. and I was getting requests to work with Courtney for the show. So I just ended up
moving snowballed.
To LA. I was like, okay, I think I'm just going to move to LA and see if I can work with Courtney for a while. And then 3 or 4 years later, I think I work with every single member of the family, and
that's so fun.
is the only time off again.
But I think that must feel really nice that you kind of, they obviously appreciate the work that you do, and they're happy with kind of with what you do and for them, and that must feel really good.
And I don't think, like, I never intended on coming in and like changing everybody's look and making everyone look the way I wanted them to look. For me, I think the reason that I work well in this environment is because I at the end of the day, I want my day to be nice. I want the people that I work with day to be nice. I want to contribute.
Right.
And I also want to make someone feel and look their best and beautiful. Mm-hmm. Even though it is a job and we're all there, we have a call time and we're there to work. But at the same time, for me, with my job, I want to enjoy my work, and I do because I make that decision. And when I'm working with my clients, we talk about what they're going to wear, we talk about what they're going to do, and we come up with, sometimes it's something very simple, and sometimes it's a lot more involved. But for me, my agenda was never really to change anyone's style. It was just to have those conversations and see where we could go. And that's what I've tried to do.
I love it. And I'm curious, I mean, we kind of talk about all these major names that you've worked with over the years. Have you ever, messed up or kind of not done, or kind of something hasn't really worked? And it's sort of, what did you learn from that experience?
Nope, I don't think so. I mean, like, hair is like, how do I put it? Like, in another job, it would be like a writer or something. Like, you're not gonna put out something that you're not proud of.
Totally.
So that's why I talk so much ahead of time. That's why I send references ahead of time. I really try to illustrate what's in my mind, but like ahead of time through conversation. So I don't think I've ever had a bad experience with somebody, because I like to be friendly and disarming, and I think that's the best way to communicate, and with kindness and love. So generally, I don't have an issue because we talk about things. And if someone's like, "Oh, I don't know about this. This is more me," especially when you're working with someone for the first time.
Right.
Everyone has their own sometimes a little insecurity. They want to cover this, or they prefer their hair down. They don't feel as beautiful with their hair up, or whatever it is. I like to talk about all of those things. Anyone who works in the beauty industry will know, whether you work at a makeup counter or you do brides or you work in a salon. Consultation is where you really get to get inside the head of somebody and try and figure all of those things out. And I don't think I've ever really had a bad experience, because there's nothing that I'm doing. I'm generally styling hair.
Right.
So there's nothing that can't be fixed. So there's nothing that can't be amended. I communicate the whole way through. And generally, I have really, really great experiences.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. And,
thank you. It was so fun.
I hope you continue to stay healthy and safe, and
you too.
Get some of those things off the checklist that we're all trying to do right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm about to go meditate.
Well, enjoy. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. For more stories from In the Know, go to intheknow.com. You can also follow In the Know on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and find me, Gibson Johns, on Instagram and Twitter at Gibsonoma. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.